Yes.
Awesome. So we'll just give everybody a few minutes to join us, and then I'm going to give Jill a proper introduction and turn her loose with our Revive friends. All right, so we usually give our folks a couple minutes because they have quite a few things going on at home between kids and COVID and everything in between. But Jill, I hope you're doing well. Excited to
Yes,
have you.
I am. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, for those of you just joining us, rolling in, we are going to get the party started soon. My name is Rich Brancaccio. I'm the founder and CEO here at Revive Technologies, also a former school psychologist. And this is part of our weekly webinar series where we're trying to give back to our users because we're living in some really crazy, tumultuous times right now with a lot more unknowns than normal. So we're trying to give you guys some really important information that you can use to both benefit yourselves as well as your children, even more importantly. So we've got a really special webinar today. You may remember last week we had a special guest star come on board. That was Amy from Psyched to Parent. And Amy did a great job. And this week we have Jill, who will be a regular with us doing some webinars moving forward. So with that, let me go ahead and give Jill an introduction, and we'll wait a couple minutes before Jill totally kicks it off because it's just 4 p.m. here. But Jill is a person that I'm pretty fond of. I've met Jill, and she is a special education teacher, and she's been a special ed teacher for over 10 years, and she has over 20 years experience working with children and adults with various disabilities. I think it's really important to bring unique people like Jill on because she brings with her a cornucopia of experience that very few people in the world are privileged to experience. Being a special education teacher is an extremely challenging position. It's an extremely challenging job. Before I was a special education, or rather before I was a school psychologist, I actually worked as a special education teaching assistant. So I worked helping special education teachers like Jill in the classroom. And I can tell you it was the most rewarding, fun, and incredibly difficult job I've ever had. And I wouldn't trade it for the world because I had so much fun and we had so many special memories with so many special kids. But I learned a lot of tricks of the trade for when I was a school psychologist by spending a lot of time in the classroom. So I can tell you firsthand, Jill has forgotten more tips and strategies and interventions than most people will ever hear about, read about, study. So we're excited to have Jill bring some of what she's learned in the classroom to you guys through this webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jill, who's got some really fun and interesting information for you. Enjoy, and thanks for coming by Revive. We hope to see you again next week and weeks following. Thanks a lot. Take care. Jill, take it away.
Thank you, Rich. So let's see. All right, so as Rich stated, I am a special education teacher, and I do have over 20 years experience. Unfortunately, that makes me sound old, but working with adults and children with various developmental disabilities. I have experience working in self-contained classrooms as well as with students who are in the general education setting who receive support directly in the classroom, and then also through pull-out services in small groups in a special education classroom. And most importantly, I am a mom to 2 children of my own. I have a son who is 14 and a daughter who is 11. So I have a child rising in the fall into high school as well as one rising into middle school. So I have been there and done that as far as the younger children, you know, from a parent perspective too, and am fully entrenched in the older kid territory at the moment. And to start off with this webinar, my goal is that this webinar is informative and helpful and helps everybody just kind of take a break and take a pause and just relax and know that we are all doing the best that we can as parents, as educators, as just people right now, given the situation with COVID. And we're gonna do the best that we can for our kids, and it's all gonna be okay. So I want you guys to just sit back, relax. I do have some schedules to share with you, and I believe Revive is going to have those available to you after the webinar. So I want you to feel free to sit back, relax, have a beverage, if you're wearing your pajamas right now, that's great. You're comfortable. So you're in good company. There's no judgment here. Part of the piece of summer is that social distancing is still in place to various degrees in different states. And I know that different parents and different families have different perspectives on that. So in doing this webinar, I respect all of that. So if you are in a family where you guys are staying quarantined and you're staying just to your immediate family, I understand that. Others who are, going out, interacting with other people and letting their kids have play dates, I respect that as well. Everybody does what works best for their family. So that being said, this is not the summer of 2020. This is what I've decided to call the summer of uncertainty. It's going to be summer and it's going to be great. We're going to have fun. Our kids are going to have fun. It's just going to look a little different. So my goal here is to help parents. And when I say parents, I include all caregivers. I may have moms here, dads here, grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, older siblings who are helping out with younger siblings, nannies, babysitters. So when I say parents, I'm speaking to all of us who know and love and care about children. But we are all going to have to figure out different ways to support our kids this year and keep them engaged. I know there are families here who parents may be working full-time and the kids are in daycare. There may be some families who they are working from home. The daycares aren't open. Kids are still at home. Kids may be sporadically going to summer camps, and still being at home. Everybody has a different situation. So my goal with this is that everyone's able to find some piece. If everything doesn't apply to you, at least you can find some piece of this that will help give you a direction to make the summer enjoyable for your kids and to help facilitate some learning. I do know and understand that a lot of parents are wanting to add on to or enhance or try to compensate for some of the instruction that was missed out on just due to the nature of how, across the country, all of our classrooms shut down abruptly and we had to move to remote learning. So I do have some suggestions for that as well to honor that. And again, my whole goal here for this summer is that it's as stressless as possible. We all have been through a lot. I've done a lot of reading on the subject, and I know with COVID, with how life has kind of in some ways stopped and life has changed and opportunities to engage with others have been cut off and have changed, that this is, for adults and children alike, kind of a traumatic experience, and we're all trying to figure out how to navigate this and how to feel about this. And what we want to do in this situation. So that being said, I'm so sorry, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, so that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing that I wanted to talk about is that with this, my intention is to think about our kids as the whole child. So we want to think about not just, I know for some of my parents that I work with, my students, they're very concerned about the academics. And I know that we all are, but in my mindset, everyone missed out on instruction. Our reg ed kids missed out on instruction, our special ed kids missed out on instruction, our elementary school kids, our preschoolers, our high schoolers, middle schoolers, everyone did. So no one's really behind because everyone's behind. And I know that it will be a big push at the start of next school year across the country for everyone all teachers and administrators to look at what we need to do to reach back into that previous grade level and get those instructional pieces that the students missed or didn't get enough of to reteach those. But again, when we think about the developmental domains, there are, depending on the model that you're looking at, up to 5 or 6 domains. I kind of broke those down into, or put those together into 3 bigger pieces. Again, really trying to keep this simple For us, I'm not trying to give you a situation where you have a lot to keep track of and think about. I want this to be simple and parent friendly and easy. Again, the goal is this is summer. We want to have some fun. These kids need some opportunities to do some fun things, get out of the house, try new things. So again, the academic piece, supports the cognitive, so the brain development and the acquisition of new skills, new instructional material. Then I also want to talk about social emotional, which for me, social emotional is the most important, especially right now, given the circumstances with COVID. Like I mentioned before, a lot of our kids are in a place of, emotional trauma. They're trying to wrap their head around not having had the closure of the school year, not have, when students left the classrooms, for example, in our state, North Carolina, we didn't know it was our last day. No one knew that was going to be the last day in the classroom. And we've certainly seen our students virtually and talked to them since then, but we didn't have that emotional closure piece of saying, this is the end of the year, saying the goodbyes, and all those activities that signal the end of the year. So to me, the social emotional piece is very near and dear, especially right now. And then the physical, which is the fine and gross motor. Fine motor, being kind of, I like to think in OT, occupational therapy, and physical therapy speak. So fine motor is typically from the waist up. That's lots of things involving your hands and fingers. And then the gross motor is lower half of your body. So you're thinking large muscle movements. So when we're developing our activities for our kids for the summer, we want to incorporate all of those areas. So like I said, social emotional is very near and dear to my heart. So I'm going to start with that. What I have here is one of the diagrams that kind of breaks down all the components of social emotional learning. So I'm going to touch on each of those a little bit. And I'm going to start in the blue section, which is the responsible decision making. So one piece of social emotional learning is that we want our kids to learn to take responsibility for things. We want them to learn to take responsibility for their belongings, for their work, for their pets if they have them, for whatever belongs to them, as well as also their feelings and taking responsibility for their actions. For relationship skills, those are things that we need to have interactions with adults and with peers. So a lot of that is built on communication. The kids' ability to be able to initiate a conversation, to ask a question, to ask for help, to have a conversation, a reciprocal conversation about topics that they're interested in, that other kids are interested in, being able to bond with important adults and important peers in their lives. Social awareness directly ties into that relationship skills. That's learning about other people and understanding social cues that you may be speaking about a topic that you're really interested in and your friend is yawning. So kind of noticing those cues that it's time to move on to a different topic, as well as learning that others have different experiences than you, they have different opinions than you, and that is okay, and how to have empathy for each other and think about others when we're making decisions, and understand that our decisions affect other people. And then the next piece is self-awareness and self-management, and they go together a lot. Self-awareness is the ability to understand, I am one person, everything, and this is hard. This, all of this gets better as kids get older. You have different expectations as far as children's ability with these skills, at the age of 5 versus 10 versus 15. But self-awareness is their ability to understand that everything isn't about them, that they are one person and that they have, their own feelings, being able to identify their feelings, and learning things that may be a trigger for them, that may cause them to become very upset, to become very angry or very sad. Self-management is knowing how to respond to those feelings appropriately. So it's learning that it is okay to be angry. all of us are angry sometimes. Being angry is a natural emotion. It's healthy. The issue comes into knowing how to respond to that appropriately, knowing how to ask for help when the emotions are too big, or being able to make a good choice about how to express our anger or solve our problem. So those are kind of all of the areas of social emotional learning that that kind of go into that piece when we think about our kids growing up to be healthy individuals. All right, so with social emotional, again, I know it's a chart and I don't want to get too technical, but I think there are some keywords here that when you're coming up with ideas of things that you would like to do with your child that I would kind of keep in the back burner of my mind that will help you with knowing that you're on the right track. Interaction, again, as much as you can get your child engaging with others, whether that's, you know, yourself, your family, extended family, other children, you know, meeting new people, whatever. Communication, so being able, like I said, to have conversations with others, to make new friends, things like that. Empathy, so again, being able to think of others, think of ways, especially with COVID, to be able to help others, and to understand, you know, as they're seeing people and going back to school, that different people have different reactions to everything that has been going on in our world lately, and that's okay. Everybody processes it differently. Cooperation, so being able to work together, you know, as a family unit when you think about activities around the home, as well as with other kids when they're back at school, and then just other kids, you know, out on the playground. One day when we get to go back to the park, and interaction with others in general. Responsibility, again, taking initiative to take care of their own belongings, to take pride in their things, to, you know, do their work for school, and then having that awareness of self and being able to identify, understand, and process their feelings. And as a side note, I did want to say, with all of this, I know right now, you know, here in North Carolina, different counties are on different schedules. I am in a school where we have 2.5 weeks left of school. We are all tired. The kids are tired. The parents are tired. The teachers are tired. So we totally get that. Some of my most conscientious, hardworking students right now are struggling, and some of the parents who are the most supportive are struggling, and we understand that. And my best advice right now is just, if nothing else, the areas of need that you know are strongest for your kids, try to work on those first. And at the end of the day, again, social emotional health does come first. So you need to take care of your family and your child in the best way possible. Again, this is a judgment-free zone. I'm a teacher, but we totally get that these are challenging situations, and none of us knew that this was going to happen. None of us signed up for it, and so we really appreciate how much parents have been troopers and have been so supportive with this. I am very blessed. I have some wonderful parents that I've worked with over the years, and they have been just as gracious during remote learning. So that's been wonderful. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start moving into some different ideas of activities. These are not inclusive list. I could fill up 500 slides if I did that, and I don't want to overwhelm, and I don't want it to be visually a lot. So just some kind of basic ideas of things that you can do. Again, starting with social emotional, because it is so near and dear to my heart. Again, also I want to have the caveat out there that different families have different positions on their comfort level with COVID and social distancing. So again, take these ideas and tweak them and make them work for what works for your family. Everybody does what they're comfortable with. I think right now, again, the whole message that I'm hearing from everywhere, which is wonderful, is grace and flexibility. So all families just need to do what works for them. And I'm saying that because the first suggestion is play dates. And that could certainly be, with friends. Our kids miss each other. They really do. So play dates are great. I think they're even more important than they have ever been because we aren't at school. And they can certainly be done virtually. You can use platforms such as like we're using now, Zoom, Google Meet, different things like that to be able to have a virtual play date, or even, an in-person play date with, other families that you may have been closely quarantining with. Next idea, phone calls. I know a lot of us now as adults, we text a lot. It's easy, it's quick. I can send a quick message and ask a question. Whoever I'm sending it to, when they see it, they're going to send me a quick answer back. And I know right away what the answer is. But I think with that and with the amount of time that our kids are spending in front of screens, my own too, I know I'm guilty of it. I think sometimes going back to the good old-fashioned phone calls and working on kids learning some of the phone etiquette, and how to have that conversation not in person is great. Messaging, again, the texting is a good option too. I know that Facebook Messenger there's a kids app that's been used. I know my daughter likes to use Google Hangouts as well. I try to limit the amount of time that my kids are on screens. But then again, I know that when this is happening, this is their chance for social interaction because my children do have some friends who are not allowed to leave their home or their own yard. So this is their way to maintain that contact. It's also a good time to just teach our kids how to send emails, how to write a good old-fashioned letter to friends of theirs. They can write to, extended family members. Anyone that they're interested in keeping in contact with. And then the next idea is journaling. So as I mentioned before, I have a teen and a preteen who thinks she's a teen. And they are at that age where they start to pull away more. They're trying to become their own people, which I understand, but still from a mama heart, it's hard. And it's in some ways been harder with COVID because we're home together all day. And so, what did you do today is not a very relevant question because I was there. I know what you did all day. And then trying to flip the conversations about what happened at school, now that's become, did you get your work done? Okay, what did you have to do for math? What did your reading homework look like? And again, our reading work look like? And again, it's still those short, simple answers, and the frustration that they're being asked. So I started Googling myself to come up with ideas of ways to help make sure that I was maintaining the close bonds that I want to have with my children as they get older. And so I have started journaling with both of my children. I got a journal for each of them that they share with me. And it's a good option for being able to write about things that kids may not be comfortable talking to us about because they're afraid they'll get in trouble, or they're not sure how we'll take it, or they're just afraid. It kind of puts up a little bit of that, wall to give them that sense of security and safety, that they can tell us things that may be uncomfortable. So I'm using it for that, and just a way to come up with new ideas for things to talk about. The journals I've gotten are kind of fill in the blank and have some topics to help get things started. So it helps us come up with new things to talk about that we've never thought of before. Sometimes it's just silly things like, what's the worst pizza you could ever think of? But anything I think at this point just to kind of help get those conversations going, especially with our older kiddos, is great. It's also great for kids to have a journal that's just theirs and they don't share with anyone, that they can write about their feelings about COVID, or just draw pictures, or whatever they're thinking about, those things that they would go and talk to friends about at school that they can't, just turn around and tell their friend now. to have a chance to just kind of put that down and help get those feelings out. Another idea, projects with others. So, you know, that could be family, and I'll talk about this more on some of the other slides, but that could be like family projects, things that you want to do around the house, or things to, you know, benefit the family. Anything that you've been thinking of that's kind of back burner, especially that you think that the children would really enjoy being involved in, or that would help teach them either some life skills or give them some of that social emotional input that we know that they're looking for, is great. Volunteering, again, that speaks to that whole empathy piece and being able to think about others. So an example I came up with is a lot. I know early on, I heard a lot of talk on Facebook of people offering to go to the grocery store to pick up groceries for elderly people who weren't comfortable going out. Now, I know most of us would not want to take our children with us to go to the grocery store, but you could certainly include your child in that by telling them about, okay, you know, Miss Smith, I talked to Miss Smith, and she needs some things from the grocery store, and you know, she doesn't feel safe to go out, so I'm going to go to the grocery store for her, and here's, you know, a list of things that she asked me to get. Can you think of anything special that we could get for Miss Smith that she might really like as a surprise? Or how about you write Miss Smith a note or draw her a picture that I can give to her when I take her groceries, or do both. Just things like that. Or, you know, if you're comfortable taking your children out in the community some, you could do things like volunteering with animals, going and helping, you know, clean up litter outside in the fresh air, anything that we can do to get our kids thinking about other people and, you know, the community as a whole. Responsibility, chores around the house. That's part of the arguments around the Wichern household lately, but this is a great time they've got the time to do it, be pushing them to do chores and be working on teaching them responsibility, increasing their life skills by teaching them how to do chores that they are not normally responsible for. I've gotten some pushback from my children, but this is great. Mom's not always going to live with you. You're not always going to live with her. Mom could get really sick and somebody else may need to clean the toilets. It's a good thing for you to learn how to do that. So working with them on that responsibility piece, you know, giving them chores that are age appropriate, and then teaching them new chores to help them learn that it's not just about them, it's about others. And it's okay to put the dishes in the dishwasher, even if you're not the one who left them on the table. It is okay. Babysitting and pet sitting are also great ways to teach children responsibility. Again, as you're comfortable with that, as far as social distancing. And then the last, you know, any kind of family activity or group activity that you can do with your child, where you're playing games, putting together puzzles, any activity that you as a family like to do, kind of sitting around and working together, hopefully will lead to some of those conversations as well. On a side note, kind of tying two things together, when I think about the virtual play dates and the games, a really cool idea that I had come up with is using a platform like Zoom, Google Meet, whatever, for a virtual meeting, and having an interactive game that the kids can share. For example, two that come to mind really quickly are Battleship and Guess Who, because you have the two boards that you usually put against each other, and then you're guessing about what the other has. You could very easily check and see if that friend has either of those games, or if not, you could share them, you know, let them borrow one half of it, and the kids can actually virtually play a game like Guess Who or Battleship through that format. Again, this is not an all-inclusive list. There are lots of other ideas. Anything that teaches those, you know, basic keyword skills that we're thinking of, the responsibility, the empathy, the cooperation are great. All right, so then gross motor activities. So again, gross motor, you're thinking large muscle movement. Outdoor play, again, if you haven't picked up on it yet, I'm tired of video games. There's a lot of it. I know as kids get older, it seems to be more of a battle. So anything that we can do to get the kids outside is great. I try to push mine out as much as possible. Dancing, and this is a good positive way to incorporate the video games. Something like Just Dance or one of the actual dancing video games. You can even make that a family activity and get everybody up and moving. They really, lots of research has been done that shows that gross motor movement helps a lot with our social emotional well-being. We need to be up and moving. That keeps us happy, keeps us cortisol levels good. Walking with a purpose. So walking, depends on the mood of the person. Everybody likes different things, but just walking to walk is not always the most exciting thing, but going for a walk in the woods can be more exciting. Or, when you're on the beach, who doesn't love to walk on the beach? But when you're out at home and you're just kind of in the neighborhood, going for a walk, you may get some resistance. So something that we've done, we do live in a small community, so we have actually put on backpacks and walked to our local grocery store. Typically the children are not going into the grocery store. They're older, so they'll kind of hang out outside with one parent, and the other goes in and gets the groceries, and they get something that they've asked for. So there's an incentive for them, something healthy that they wanted, and then walking back home. Or we have also walked to our local Sonic. So it's a walk or a bike ride there with mom and dad, getting a treat, and then walking or bike riding back. My next point, going on an adventure. So I am from North Carolina. I've lived here my entire life, and I have lived in the Raleigh area for over 20 years. And it has recently come to my attention that there are lots of places that I know about, but I've just never been, or that I didn't know existed. So we've kind of talked a lot lately about going on an adventure, like finding somewhere new that we've never been before and going there. There's a great park, or I guess more of a natural area, nature park, that had opened up maybe 3 years ago, a couple miles from my house. And we've never been, and we just decided a couple weekends ago to go for a walk at the park. We were going to go to our regular park, and I was like, oh wait, let's try this new place. I saw some pictures, it looks wonderful. And we went, and it was so nice, and I was just kicking myself that we'd never been before. So I think that's a great option, is to think of places, and just Google and, local Facebook groups. What's in the area? What are people talking about? What's outdoors that's new and fun and different? Because, going on vacation this year, I don't know, for lots of families, I don't know that that's going to be a reasonable alternative. I know there are economic challenges, and then we also have, airlines. Who wants to be on a plane? Who wants to be on a long car ride with the kids after we're home with them all day? So, that can be a little bit more challenging, but this is a way to have kind of some almost mini vacations and feel like you're somewhere completely new. Good old school climbing trees. This is the summer, not to be that nervous parent, which I'm guilty of, worrying about your child. We really don't want our kids to get hurt. We want to teach them safety, but climbing trees is going to get them outside and get some of that gross motor input for them as well. Floor is lava, jumping around on furniture. I know that's not the top of anybody's list, but these are just ideas. If you get desperate and those kids need some energy out and it's a rainy day, jumping or carefully taking large steps from piece of furniture to piece of furniture might be a good option. Playing in the sprinkler, again, anything that gets the kids up and moving and especially gets them outside is great. Then moving into fine motor activity ideas. So again, this is, with your hands, those small movements. So using chopsticks. And yes, chopsticks can be used to eat food. You can also use them to just have the kids pick up things just as a game. I want you to try to use chopsticks to hold a crayon to color this picture. Or I want you to use chopsticks and see how many marshmallows you can get, out of the bag and into the bowl in a minute. Anything like that. It's just something fun, something silly, and gets them a different type of input. Any of these fine motor activities, if your child has difficulty with poor handwriting because they have underdeveloped muscles in their hands, this is going to help with that. Stringing beads, any kind of thing like that, where they're working on making necklaces, bracelets, whatever. Puzzles, again, great for this. Writing, drawing, painting, finger painting. I've seen really cool idea where someone had hands traced on cardboard, and you can actually paint draw fingernails and paint the fingernails. Anything like that is great for kids, just something different. Play-Doh, slime, not a big fan of that, but again, desperate times, we've got to be more flexible. Slime, make it outside, have fun with it out there. Any kind of arts and crafts, cake decorating, cookie decorating, whatever you can come up with that the kids are able to use their hands and kind of make a little bit of a mess is great. All right, so moving on to academic. As you can see, I don't have any activities here because that is really child specific and based on their needs, their age. So that's really hard to give ideas. I could, again, fill up 500 slides with that to try to cover all the way from preschool to high school. So what I'd rather do instead is give you some tips. Again, my main focus here is the KISS principle, and keep it simple and keep it fun. You want, whatever you are doing with your child, you want to feel like that it's fun, or it should be fun, because if you don't see the fun aspect of it, your child is certainly not. And if we can get them bought into it by feeling that it's fun and it's a side thing that they're learning, we're going to get a lot better output from them. So the first recommendation that I have is think about your two main areas of instruction. Typically that's your literacy and your math. Those are usually the areas that parents are most concerned about. So think about literacy, their overall reading and writing. What is, and I know with some students there may be lots of concerns, but which of that is the most foundational? So, you think about all the things that Johnny's having trouble with. What is the one thing that's most foundational that if Johnny could just do this, it would make all of that a little bit easier? So if Johnny's having trouble with reading, look back at notes from teachers and things like that, or talk to the teacher. Is it really because Johnny doesn't understand what he's reading, or is it because Johnny's having trouble decoding the words? He's having trouble actually reading the words on the page, and what types of words is he having trouble with? And go back to that most basic skill and work there on that. Because if Johnny's able to read more easily and more fluently, that's going to help with his comprehension. And then the same thing for math. It may be that a student is having difficulty with solving addition and subtraction problems, but when you really take a look at their work and you see that they add two numbers up and the answer doesn't make sense, like there's no way that could be right, it may be that the child really doesn't understand the value of numbers. They really don't have that number sense. So working on activities will help them understand the value of numbers would be more foundational and will get you farther with the addition and subtraction. So that's my recommendation for that. Just kind of pick one overall underlying need for literacy and then for math. And then I would also recommend picking an area of strength or interest. So pairing an area that they excel in. So let's say they do really well in science. They love science. Try to tie science into your reading and your math as much as possible, because that's going to give them confidence. Well, I'm not the best reader, but I already know so much about the solar system. So when they go to read, when they're reading about the solar system, they feel like, well, I already know that, but they're really working on the decoding or the comprehension piece. Or you can pair with an area of interest, and that's going to get them to be more engaged. They're going to be more excited about it when it's something that they really want to learn about. So thinking about when your child is coming up to you and asking you questions about, those why or how questions, or you overhear them asking Alexa different questions or Googling things. Those may be ideas of things you'd like to incorporate into the academic activities that you're doing. And then here's some more. So I don't know what your child's working situation is like right now. And again, this is a no judgment zone. My husband is not a teacher, but my husband was insistent when we first started remote learning that our children had to sit at our dining room table to work. And, they each sat at an opposite side. I sat at one end, and that was how we did it. And it was not sustainable. The dining room table is not very comfortable to work at. It's not the same height as a desk. And so now we have moved to, I'm working with a lap desk from my couch. And my children, I have one who's working in his bed, and my daughter is in an upstairs family room on a blanket on her stomach doing her work. They're getting their work done. Teachers aren't complaining. They're learning. Like, everything's great. It's not broken, so I don't fix it. So that's my suggestion for the summer too, is that don't think of this, and I wouldn't even call it working time, but don't think of this as they have to be at the table. If they don't have a pencil in their hand, they're not learning. This is what it needs to look like. Have fun with it. Be creative with it. Let them go work outside. There's a picnic table or a table outside. They're going to sit out there, or they're going to take a blanket and sit under a nice tree outside in the shade. They want to build a fort during the day and work in their fort. As long as they're working on something, let them go for it. Maybe they just want to sit under the table to work. That's one of the things that you learn in special ed, is that kids like to have control over what they can. And I have had students who can't sit at a table, and certainly, some of our ADHD kiddos, they can't sit like that. And they don't do as well working when they're trying to sit at a table. They do better moving around, or they do better sitting in a different place, or sitting in a way that they can get different input, like laying on their stomach or sitting crisscross applesauce. They focus better. So as long as your child's working, whatever creative place they come up with to do it, as long as it's safe and appropriate, I say go for it. And then my last recommendation, kind of two pieces here together, is to think about, when you're wanting to incorporate your child's interests and your child's strengths, to consider doing either project-based learning or theme-based learning. With project-based learning, your overall focus is that you're trying to create something. So it may be something like making ice cream, using a ice cream, with ice cream makers at home, or it could even be ice cream in a bag. Or you've already decided this summer you're going to be building a tree house, finding ways to incorporate your child into that and work on their reading and math and their social emotional with the activities that are based around the building of this tree house. Cooking, they really enjoy cooking, so we're going to work on that. You're following recipes, and they can be working on their reading. And then theme-based learning, that's more focused on their interests. So maybe animals, foods that they're really interested in, learning a new skill. But I think for this summer, some of our kids are going to be at home with us all summer. Some kids may be at camp some, or have virtual camps, or there's just different situations. So this is a way in my mind, when I'm thinking about how to keep my kids busy this summer, is trying to create almost like a mini camp at home. We can still work on all those areas of the whole child, and we can work on some academics, but we're working on it being fun, and we're getting the kids to buy in. And the ultimate goal to be that this is a memorable summer. It's different. It may not be everything that we signed up for, but it's memorable, and different things happened than any other summer, good, positive things. So leading into that, with the talk about project-based learning and then also possibly considering themes, I did want to show some example schedules like I mentioned before. The first thing that I want to say though is that I'm a firm believer in sick days. And I'll explain. So when you are homesick from work or whatever, you are in your, typically if you really don't feel well, you're in your pajamas, maybe you're watching TV, you're sleeping, you're basically doing what you want to do, but you're not enjoying it. So we started as a family when my kids were small. I said something to my husband about I wanted to take a sick day one day over the weekend. And he didn't know what I was talking about. I was like, why can't we just have a day that it's like we're sick, but we're not. We can enjoy it. If you don't feel like coming out of your pajamas, you don't have to. But at this point with COVID, we've all lived in pajamas so much. Maybe we're tired of that. I don't know. But, whatever you want to do within reason, you can do that. So, you have to get up, you have to brush your teeth and all that. But if you want to wear pajamas all day, you can wear pajamas all day. If you want to be dressed like a superhero all day, you can do that too. And giving them more flexibility with the screen time and things like that, and just allowing them some downtime and some time to recuperate. Kids are not many adults, but they are like us, that they need a break and they need some time to just relax and not have everything planned out for them. So I think sick days are great just to kind of give everybody a chance to do their own thing and have more freedom and flexibility. And then also in that sick day, find some time that it's family downtime. So we're doing a shared activity together. Again, low activity, usually, movies, things like that, or maybe you just want to do a family game day. But whatever, works for your family, that kind of gives everybody a chance to just feel like they can just stop and breathe and decompress. So with the schedules, I'm going to start with the most specific, which is the daily. And again, these are just examples of what it could look like, just to kind of help you get thinking about this. So with the daily schedule, I have two examples here. I have the project-based and the theme-based. So for the project-based, for the project-based, like I alluded to before, you could do ice cream in a bag. Google it. It's very fun. I did it with a group of fifth graders a couple years ago. You just get a few ingredients and you just shake it up in a bag, and shaking the ingredients in the bag creates the I can't think of the word, but anyway, gets the motion that you need to make your ice cream. So you could start off your schedule with breakfast, then your morning routines. That's simple things like, brushing the teeth, making bed, whatever your child needs to do to get ready, as well as whatever they need to do to be ready to start the day. And that depends on your child. What I mean by that is most adults, not myself, so that's why I say most, I'm a weird Southerner, have a cup of coffee in the morning to start their day. And lots of them, they like to try to have that, like they kind of sit down, relax, like wake up. So whatever for your child they need to kind of help them wake up, get acclimated to being awake and the day, and kind of get their mind right, would be part of your morning routines. An example of a physical activity, you could do the walk or the bike ride to the grocery store and get your supplies to make the ice cream. Follow that up. By the time you get back, it's going to be a while. You're going to be tired. They'll probably be saying they're hungry. You can move into lunch. Then you're working on reading comprehension. When you're reading the recipe to make the ice cream and you're talking about the process, that is your reading comprehension. Okay, so what do we have to do? What's the order for that? Getting your child to talk that through with you to make sure not only that they can just read the words of the directions, but they really understand how to execute that. You're working on your math, you're working on fractions when you're measuring out your ingredients. Then you could have, after you made your ice cream, they could have a virtual meeting with their friend and be able to talk about making ice cream or whatever they would like. And then they could always do a journal about their experience making ice cream, eating the ice cream, how it tasted, how they liked making it, how messy it was, all of those good things. So sorry. For a theme-based schedule, I did this one based on sharks. So again, starting your morning with breakfast, morning routines, your physical activity, you could pull up some songs and dance to them. Baby Shark, Splish Splash, good old Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid. Move into lunch from there. Your reading comprehension could be reading a book about sharks or an article about sharks that's on their level. I know Revive has done a nice job of sharing some sites and sources that have books that are available online for kids to read that are free. So something along those lines would be great. And discuss that with your child, the book that they've read. Math, you could find an ocean-themed worksheet to work on adding if that was an area of need. Fine motor, Pinterest, find a shark craft project that they could work on. And then for social emotional, something like Shark Bite. Again, this is very themed. It doesn't have to be this strict. But you could play a game like Shark Bite as a family to try to tie in that theme and get that social emotional piece of everybody working together, learning to take turns, learning how to lose, and that you aren't always going to get to win is a great social emotional skill to learn as well. So that's the daily. And then for weekly, it might look something like this. So for this week, I did an ocean animals theme, and you'll see I decided to start the day of the week off with a sick day, and decided since we're doing ocean animals, we'd watch a family movie during that day at some point and watch Finding Dory. And then each day, I just picked a different sea creature that your child may be interested in. So you could do, Monday crabs, Tuesday dolphins, Wednesday sharks, Thursday octopuses, Friday sea turtles. So again, finding something that would tie into each of your math, your reading, your social emotional, your physical, fine and gross motor. And again, a lot of those things you can see that they tie into each other. You can pick one activity and it really does fulfill multiple things. You can be, doing puzzles, that's working on fine motor. And if you're doing it as a family, you're getting that social emotional piece as well by having conversations with your children and talking about, even just silly topics. And then Saturday, family water games outside. So break out, the slip and slide or just a sprinkler or whatever. Do a water balloon toss, fun things like that. And then the monthly. And so on here, I just kind of put a theme for each week. So you'll see I did this for the month of June. And I've got first week, Ocean Animals Week. Again, I didn't put all the animals on here. It's just an example, and I didn't want it to be too overwhelming. I got the family water games on there. As you can see, sick day. You could do another week that's let's get cooking. You could end that with a family nailed it kind of activity where you do cookie or cake decorating, whatever you guys would enjoy as a family that would support that activity. I also put on here Mammals Week, and then as possible activity, overnight trip to the petting zoo, which may be a day trip. But on here, I actually moved the sick day to the day after the petting zoo, thinking that if you were comfortable going on a trip and you were staying in a hotel, you could always have your sick day at the hotel the next day, playing in the pool, and then going home and watching a family movie, because everybody needs a sick day after you've been on a trip. I think that's a universal truth. And then the last 2 weeks there, I have, a family project of working on creating a garden and that being your focus that week. And then the last week, finding a new hobby. So again, just some ideas to kind of help you think about how to look at this from a daily, weekly, or monthly schedule, or monthly schedule plan. So that is everything that I had for you guys. I really appreciate your time, and speaking as a teacher, we teachers really appreciate you sharing your children with us and trusting us with your children, and working together with us. Again, this has been a challenging time, and I feel like that this has, from a teacher perspective, from a mom perspective, and just from a human being perspective, has really helped to bring the world together a little bit closer, and everybody to think about each other a little bit more. And I think that's great. And that's definitely been true in the classroom setting, in the education setting, and that is greatly appreciated. And we cannot wait to be able to get back into the classroom and actually physically see our children. And I know that I speak for a lot of us that we cannot wait until the day when there is no social distancing at all and we can hug those babies. Because that's tough. That's tough when you're looking at your kids through a screen, and they're asking you when you're gonna go back to school, and you're like, I don't know. There may be a time frame that may change, and then knowing that there's a good chance that you won't be able to hug your students when you go back, that's tough. That's tough for us, and I know it's tough for them as well. But I really appreciate your time today. Let me see, did I have any comments or questions I need to take a look at? Let me see here. Don't think so. I thought I saw a comment at some point.
Yeah, we did have someone asking if they were going to get a recording of the webinar, which, yes, we'll be sending that out tomorrow.
Okay.
Let me check Facebook.
Okay, yeah, I just looked at the Q&A and I didn't see anything. And excuse me one second, I am so thirsty. I cannot talk this long without water. Excuse me. Much better.
Yeah, looks like we're good to go.
All
You did a good job, so there's no questions.
Great.
Well, thank you, Jill. And yeah, if you guys, let's see. Yeah, Amy just said this was great. Thanks.
Awesome. So glad to hear that.
Yeah, and another thanks.
Oh, thank you. Yay.
And yeah, we'll be sending out these schedules to you guys tomorrow to print off. And if you have any questions, just feel free to respond to that email.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Good night.